everyone. I'm here today with Nikki Love, who has completed one of the most amazing challenges ever. I'm so jealous. Running from Perth all the way to Sydney. How are you, first of all? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty well, actually. I don't sound pretty well. I've got a cold, but apart from that, pretty well.
Amazing. So let's start off with kind of introduce us a little bit. Tell us about how you got into long distance running. Where's this kind of passion come from?
Oh, okay. This is a long story. I'll try and keep it pretty brief. I pretty much got into the extra long distance running when I turned 50, which was 6 years ago. Um, Up until that point, I'd run marathons and I'd done one sort of attempt at multi-day marathons. So actually, I'd done two attempts at multi-day marathons. So in 2010, I ran 7 marathons in 7 days. And then in 2016, the year before I turned 50, I did a race called the Jungle Ultra. So that was in Peru. And I don't know. I think once you start doing these things, it's just a slippery slope. And that's what it seems to have been for me. Is like I keep asking the question, oh, if I can do this, what else can I do? And yeah, it's been more. I wonder what I can do longer rather than faster, because I'm really not a fast runner. I am just a nice slow plodder that can keep plodding for a very long time.
Like a Duracell bunny.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to, cover this challenge? It's over 5,000 kilometers. You're literally going from one end of the country to the other. What inspired this idea? What brought you here?
Okay, so I mean, I grew up in Australia, so that was sort of the number one thing. Is that for me that meant that I'd be going home. So I'm based in the UK, but yeah, this challenge was all about going home and seeing a country that I do love, but hadn't really experienced a whole lot of. So that was the first thing. I had watched. A UK bloke run across Australia in 2013. And at that time, I thought, oh, I wonder whether I could do that. Having only done 7 marathons in 7 days, I know it was a huge leap, but rather than sort of like put me off, I just thought, oh, yeah, one day, one day. And it took 10 years to make that one day. And yeah, the route from Perth to Sydney was a record, a Guinness World Record parameters. So that was another incentive to see if I could do that. And yeah, the longer I thought about it, the more I wanted to do it. And then when obstacles came in the way, then that was a more determination to find a way to make it happen. And ultimately, it came to a bit of a head this year. And luckily for me, it worked out.
Yeah, definitely. So, what training preparation did you put in before going into this? Because you must be running, exceptionally long distances day after day. So, leading up to it, what was your training like?
Leading up to it was a bit well, stop start, because 2 years ago I fractured my pelvis, and that was from being perimenopausal, and so it from there again it was one of those things. Well, I've got to try and work out whether I can do this or not do this. What can I change? What can I make a difference about? So that was a sort of a learning curve for me. And yeah, for the last 2 years was all about starting off with strength, building, my bones density back up, looking at my diet to make sure that everything was working well. Looking at my hormone levels and seeing what I could adjust there. And in the last so that was a 2 year period, but I started this run in May, on the 1st of May. but leading up to it, I had a coach, Lauren Gregory. She had planned with me. We spent the last 12 months sort of with a gradual building plan for running. And then in January, I slipped over on some black ice and hurt myself again in the pelvis area. And so the running actually kind of dropped off rather than sort of an increase. It dropped off, and I took a break and didn't actually start increasing the running again until March. So it was a very short, sort of steep, short and steep increase, which was not ideal. And it did impact the run in that I'd wanted to run 60 kilometers a day. The first 2 weeks I wasn't getting near that, but it did change as I went along. So my body adapted, and pretty much I used the adventure as part of the training. So there was a really steep increase from 110 kilometers a week to I think it was the first week was 350, 360 kilometers a week, and then it gradually increased as I got stronger.
Wow. I mean, that makes it extra inspiring, really, because for you to have such a quick turnaround and then still manage to be able to do this amazing challenge is really quite amazing. Because some people would come against those sort of obstacles and think, oh, I'll leave it another year. But you were very determined by that point that this was going to go ahead.
Absolutely. Like I said, it was a 10-year process, so I didn't want to put it off another year. There is this thing of age, so I certainly am not getting any younger, that's for sure. And I was 56 this year, and I wanted to give it my best go. So yeah, that was that was the driving force.
Amazing. So tell me about an average day kind of in your life while you were out there. What sort of things are you eating? Where was your mindset at? Because you've got to have some sort of motivation to keep yourself going for 70 odd days. So
yeah, so well, the motivation is not be embarrassed and stop after telling everybody that you're going to do it. So that's a good way to kick you up the bum and get going every day. The mindset process had been a long one as well, so I really worked on that, and I worked on that on all of the runs that I've done, which is sort of pretty much talking myself into this, and that that I'm going to do this, and unless I have broken something, which that has happened in previous adventures, unless I was broken, I would keep going, because I didn't really have a good excuse to not keep going. That's personal integrity. The daily routine was, I'm not very good at mornings, so it really was trying to get up as close to 5 o'clock in the morning as I possibly could. I don't like running in the dark, and that meant that I did have to start in the dark. I mentioned that I'm slow, so it tended to be that I finished in the dark as well. So there was this aspect that actually I was running scared quite a lot of the time. Eating was that sort of weaved, starting with what I could do, and it changed throughout, but I ended up with a bit of a routine, which was a peanut butter sandwich and coffee in the morning, nut bars through the day, crisps and sandwiches, and when in the evening it was because we were on the road, and we were in the middle of nowhere for a very, very, very long time. We had to make sure that everything we needed was in the van, frozen. So it was the food that we'd taken along. So there was best practices, and then there was what we actually did. So there was no vegetables in the van because the veggies weren't going to last for 76 days, and there was no space for vegetables. So that had to be it was a nice to have, and I might have had some lettuce on my burgers at some of the roadhouses. So that was about it, and certainly no vegetables either. So fruit as well. So yeah, it was what we had and what we could take that really drove what I could eat. So yeah, wasn't the most ideal diet, but it did work.
Yeah, definitely. So Australia, obviously, people don't really think about how big Australia is. It's around the size of America, like from width to width. It kind of fits within the same parameters.
Yeah.
But a large majority of it is quite uninhabitable. So
Empty.
yeah, nothing there. I remember going and visiting Brisbane and Sydney and being like, wow, and then you fly over the top of it and you're like, oh, I just have to be where
Nothing
the
there.
trees are. So tell me a bit about, the environments you were running in and how that maybe impacted your running.
Yeah, so I'd taken a lot of that into consideration, and actually I'd gone out the year before while I was recovering from my break. I was cycling, so I went out and I cycled a stretch of the middle part, which is along the Nullarbor, where there isn't anything. You get a roadhouse every 200 to 250 kilometers, and the roadhouse is just a petrol station with a cafe attached to it, and that's it. And camping sites. So I'd gone and taken a look at that. So I had that in consideration. The weather as well. So I'd chosen to run during an Australian winter. I had watched this UK guy do it during the summer, and I was just like, oh, bad mistake, not doing it then. So I'd done the research, I had the averages, but the weather is the weather, and it was a lot hotter than what the average should have been. So the hot weather brought the flies with it. So it was supposed to be the off seasons for flies, but the flies didn't get told that. So the flies were there. It was just covered in flies. I had to run with a net over my face. So it was hotter than I expected. The flies were there when I hadn't expected them. Being so remote was beautiful, but it was also scary, I guess, being on my own for such a long time. There was just the two of us, me and my partner Sharif, and he would drive on ahead, and so most of the time I was by myself, just dealing with the traffic. And the road trains in Australia are enormous. They're about 56 meters long, so that's longer than a Olympic-sized pool. And yeah, the amount of caravanners was incessant as well, because I think after the year of coming out of lockdown, this was the sort of the second year and the second sort of season. And it just seemed like everybody in Australia was heading west, and I was running straight into this never-ending traffic. So yeah, and then of course there was the wildlife. So there was so many things to take into consideration. The heat meant that the snakes were still around, so we saw snakes. Spiders are there, doesn't matter what the weather is, and they are dangerous. Yeah, there was just lots and lots of things to take into consideration. I had an experience of dingo running alongside me. It was beautiful and yet scary as well. So I wasn't quite sure what was happening, why it was running with me. Yeah,
It was you out. It was just like, what are you doing out here?
I had the story going on in my head, is that we're just out here having a run, having a little race. And the dingo wants to win, and yeah, so yeah, there was a lot of that sort of going on in my mind, trying to keep everything contained and not sort of let the head disappear too much. So yeah, that again, that was sort of like that mental side of or the mindset side sort of the training.
I'm sure the wildlife was pretty amazing though, because I think the most I've seen running through England is maybe a fox or a badger or something. So I can only imagine
So
running past and there being kangaroos and all the
the
amazing.
the funny thing was uh, from Perth till just past Augusta, so that was over the halfway mark. So probably going to 2,500 kilometers. There really wasn't a whole lot of wildlife. I mean, there were snakes and your dingo. I saw a couple of kangaroos. They tended to bounce off, try and get out of the way. I would scare them as much as they would scare me. But it wasn't until sort of going over the other on the east side that I ended up seeing a lot more. So I saw a lot of dead stuff. So the whole of the air highway was just like running through one big graveyard. There was just bones everywhere. So yeah, but on the eastern side, that's where I saw the kangaroos, the emus. Yeah, there was a lot more wildlife and foxes, and yeah, so
Amazing. So tell me how you feel like your body changed during this time, because running for such an extended period of time, you're going to see changes in your body.
mm.
Especially, as you were talking about the menopause as well, just, how did everything kind of fare out over those 3 months?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big worry, but I had to not worry too much about it, and sort of trust that everything that I had done over the past 2 years had made me stronger, and that hopefully, it was all fingers crossed, that nothing broke down. There was a lot of aches and pains, and the first couple of weeks I was covered in KT tape, because things were hurting extremely. I had also put on weight over those 2 years, partly from the lack of running originally, taking hormone replacement, and just a general change in my physiology. So at the start, I looked different, I felt different, but when I started that whole process, the adaptation process, and it took about 3 weeks, maybe going into the fourth week, by the time running 55 kilometers a day felt normal. uh, yeah. And by that stage, I dropped some weight, so everything started to feel more like what I normally feel like when I'm sort of running. And yeah, it wasn't, I mean, it was still hard, but it wasn't as, it became a normal thing, and the pain dropped off. And yeah, it just became all right, I'm going out for a run. Okay, it hurts, but there's nothing sort of high level stabbing, 7 or 8 sort of on the hierarchy list of out of 10. So you try to keep everything at a minimum of about 2 to 3.
Kind of amazing how the body just adapts to whatever we're doing. The fact that eventually your body was like, okay, this is fine. It's
Yeah.
kind of amazing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, and I did, and I very much try not to use the term, I'm too old for this, because it's very easy to say I'm too old for this. And in the first 2 3 weeks, I was just like, oh, I'm way too old for this. This really is, my final thing. I'm not doing this again. I can't do this. Beside the fact that I was actually out there doing it. And I realized that the self-talk is really important. So when it became a little bit more, because I'd done these sort of similar things to these, is that I did know that there was an adaptation phase. And once I got into my flow, once everything sort of settled down, I actually thought, well, actually, you know what, I'm here, I'm doing it. So age, yes, it impacted little things along the way, but I'm here, I'm doing this. So I'm not too old for this.
Oh, you
See how
completed
far I can go.
it. Was amazing, amazing. So tell me a bit about your crew. Was it just you and your
Yeah,
partner?
just me and my partner, Sharif. And that is hard work. It's hard work for him, being on his own. Um, so he is a people person. I'm not so much, but I'm quite happy to be in my own little world for hours and hours, 10, 14 hours a day. I'm okay with that. But he had to sit in the van for the same periods of time. He had to find safe places, and that wasn't as easy as we thought it was going to be, given that it was sort of like the majority of it was one straight road. The ability to get off the road, pull over so that he could feed and water me, was awkward. And yeah, that he had that level of stress of, like, he had to make sure that we had all the water that we needed, and we were going through an area that had been suffering a drought, so water wasn't available at these road houses, and every time we got to one, we were like, sorry, no water. So we'd had to make sure that the van was full of water. We had extra water. We had water purifications, things, so that if we could pick up sort of tank water. So there were all those things that he had to think about. It wasn't just sort of like the way he was thinking. It was like he's going to put the deck chair out with a book and just wait until I rocked up. that wasn't quite the holiday that he had in his head. It didn't quite work out that way. But between the two of us, it worked. And the beauty of it just being the two of us is that we practiced it before, but also we get along because we're still together. And I do get grumpy, and I am a diva, and there are a lot of tears, and so that the dynamics would change if there was more people, as much as I would have liked a bigger crew, and that might have helped me sort of, I don't know, maybe go a bit faster. It worked for us.
Amazing. So tell me about that final kind of day, maybe. You're near the end, you're going towards Bondi Beach. How did it feel that you knew you were so close?
The final day kind of went over 2 days, because I could have finished in one day as I was coming along the final stretch, but it would have meant that I would be finishing close to midnight, and I'd organised for my parents to be there. They'd flown in from down south of Australia. And so I kind of left that last day with 27 Ks to run, so that I'd be running in the daylight, and I would see everything, and I'd really really milk it. Really appreciate the fact that that was a lot of hard work having gone into that. So yeah, the last day, or the last day and a half was pretty incredible. I had to finish off on a motorway. So I'd started on a highway that changed into a motorway, and I saw the sign saying pedestrians not allowed on the motorway, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to have to keep running. I hope nobody stops me, because I'm not diverting. And the police did drive past, and they ignored me, so I kind of just went, okay, just keep my head. The traffic was crazy busy because it had been a long weekend, and people were going home from school holidays, and so the traffic was just incessant. The noise was crazy. I had my head going, just be careful, just keep running. And then the last day, or the last half a day, I somehow managed to get lost and added a couple of extra kilometers to my day. But it was just incredible, coming into the top of Bondi. You come in and you can see the ocean, and it's a downhill to the beach, and a couple of people had come to join me, and they were like, come on, let's go, you know, and I'm like, no, I want to take my time. I want to take videos, photos. I've got my phone out. My son is in the UK, and I'm like calling him so he could be a part of it. And the people who were running with me they were just like, yeah, you've got to finish this. You've got a time. I'm like, no, it's fine. I just want to enjoy this. So yeah, my parents, my sister, my nephew, a few people who had followed along were waiting. So it was just crazy, a little bit anticlimactic, because it was just like, oh, it's done. But it was just an amazing experience.
Amazing. I know you can't really describe, 76 days worth of kind of travels within such a short period of time, but what did you kind of learn about yourself through this experience? And how do you think that's kind of transcribed into your life?
There's two answers here. So I was discussing that with my son last night. I said, what did I learn? I just learned that I could run a bloody long way really slowly. That Australia really is that big. But then there was the other side of it, which was, I was scared a lot, and I did it regardless. So that theory of feel the fear and do it anyway, I really did live that. And I didn't get rid of the fear. I just had it there, and it just came along with me. So when going forward, if I am scared of other things, I know that this experience will help me. That I'm not too old for these things. What I got out of it, or what people got out of it as well, because people who watched were, they were part of it. Their messages to me was part of it. It was helped me keep going. And sort of like I said to you, it's like I didn't want to not do it, because I told a lot of people. But being part of it and feeling the pride and it being a collective thing. So people did help me. A lot of people helped me raise money to do it, pay for certain things of the adventure, and that was that's so beautiful to me, and I hope that they got something out of being a part of it. So that was Australia's big is basically what I learned.
So what's your recovery been like? How did you feel maybe the day after? How do you feel now? Now you're a couple weeks out.
So that the day after, Sharif and I went to, we had breakfast with my mum and dad, and then they flew out. Sharif and I went down to the beach for a walk, with the idea that I won't run the next day, but I will just move. Went for a swim, went for a little lie down on the beach, and for 76 days, we'd been so careful about how I got up off the ground, because my body was pretty sore, I wasn't doing any upper body stuff. Anyway, I put my hand up to Sharif and said, can you pull me up? And as he pulled me up, I pulled something in my in my scapular chest area, like seriously pulled something. And for the next week I could barely sleep because of this injury.
Oh gosh.
I couldn't run because it hurt. And so the detraining became pretty close to zilch, because I'd injured something the day after, not even my legs or anything like that. It was just this upper part here. So it was a bit weird. The brain fog was crazy, and I think there was a lot going on there, which was the intense attention to the staying safe on the roads and the traffic, and then the minute I stopped, it was just like, whoa, brain was I'm cutting out here. So yeah, I did suffer a lot with brain fog for good few weeks. and but I was able to start running again, and have kind of built up, or detrained and came down to a sort of a nice little level of just a few Ks a week. Yeah, it's probably under 100 Ks, so somewhere between 80 to 100 Ks is now what I'm sort of like maintaining, until I decide what it is that I want to do next. So there's been a few issues and niggles that I sort of noticed as I was going along, but you learn to compartmentalize it and say, well, I'll deal with that later. So you kind of try to ignore the levels of, or the little hotspots of pain. So my Achilles has been a bit of an issue. Hamstring has been, tendons have been a bit of an issue, but again, this is part of the run, but also part of being perimenopausal is tendon issues. So all things that I'm trying to work on now that I've finished, and so it's back in the gym, back on trying to improve my running gait, because running that far for that long, it becomes more of a shuffle than a run. So yeah, trying to work on all of those things.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for coming on with me. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I can't wait to hear about all the stuff you do in the future.
Thank you, Emily.